What's your biggest? I broke something, but fixed it enough so it doesn't look broken until someone else uses it moment. It's become a bit of a joke at work that I break things. I broke one thing once, but since then my colleagues have enjoyed blaming everything else that breaks on me in jest. I add point, not in a bullying kind of way. One day I went to open a drawer that houses a bin and the whole panel came off in my hand. It was loose anyway, so was going to happen at some point, but I wasn't in the mood for the oh look, he broke something again, so I reattached the panel enough that it sat in place. Later on, a colleague went to open the drawer and the panel fell off. I took my opportunity to shame said colleague for breaking it. Didn't catch on. I'm still known for breaking things. We knocked a hole in a door with a couch while moving a friend out of their old apartment. One paper bag, some glue, and a little bit of acrylic paint later, and it was good as new. They got their security deposit back. Couple of weeks later we were talking about it, and it comes up that a different friend had family who worked for a local moving company. The client who moved into the apartment hit the same door and opened the hole. Dude from the moving company apparently did a similar patch job. Don't know what happened after that, but I like to think 15 years later there is a layer of paper on that door about 10 layers thick. Was watching little sister who was 6 years old at the time, and she climbed out a window to this little ledge about 3/4 of a story up point and promptly fell. So far so good point, until she saw her right forearm a good 20 degrees out of place. Then she freaks out. I get her inside, cleaned up, arm is still a mess. Stopped her crying but it still hurt, and gave her the briefing that she'd get in trouble for being out there, and I'd get in trouble for not watching her close enough. The plan: when mom pulls up from the grocery store, I'll help start bring bags in, and you come around from the side of the house going, Mom, you were getting a basketball off the hillside and fell off the retaining wall. You'd have to see it, but absolutely plausible. Worked like a charm. Mom was a nurse, whisked her off to the ER to get a cast, came back super doped up, and no one in trouble. We did fess up years later. Used to work at a pharmacy in the photo lab about 15 years ago. They have those double hinge doors to get behind the counter. Held it open as I walked through for a cashier, and they failed to notice the door cracked off the hinge as I held it. Stood there for a moment not sure how to respond till I heard the cashier call the manager to the front. Placed the door back in place, as if it were closed. Balanced standing upright pressed against the hinge. Manager comes up and goes to push it open, launching it forward and crashing into the photo machine. He was stunned, and I just turned from what I was doing to cry out, "Manager, what did you do?" He never realized it was broken before he got there. When I was 10 years old, I borrowed my mom's favorite flip-flops. The strap broke while I was on the playground, so I snuck into the art room and glued it back with Elmer's glue. Even 10-year-old me thought the repair wouldn't last, but by God, it did. I'm 37 years old and recently asked her if they ever broke. She said that she still has them, but I think she mistook them for another pair because I didn't see them anywhere. Regardless, she wore them until I went to college and they never broke. On deployment, they put us up in a hotel, and we had a suite we used as a common room. One night after many beers, a 250-pound dude randomly tackles me. We fall onto the bed, shattering the wooden frame, causing it to collapse to the floor. We propped it back up and pretended everything was fine. A few days later there was another crew passing through, so they put someone in that common room to sleep. Dude goes in the room, throws his bag on the bed, which immediately falls apart again. We pretended to know nothing and made the guy to tell the reception desk he broke the bed with his luggage. My parents were out of town, and I was painting my nails in the living room. I believe I was about 23. A glob of polish dropped on the dark wood end table. I had a paper towel with remover and grabbed it super fast. Almost proud of myself, I caught the polish before I made a big mistake. Wrong. I wiped off the stain with the polish remover. Thinking quickly, I switched the side table with the one on the other side of the room and put the lamp on top of it. Parents none the wiser. My mom found the removed spot about a year later. Assumed it was my older sister. I used to work in food service, and part of the job was vacuuming the dining area. The vacuums were often broken, and management decided that if you were caught with a broken vacuum, you were fired on the spot. Never mind if it was already broken and you were bringing it up to be fixed. Broken and in your hand means fired, period. Anyway, I got real fast at stealthy vacuum repair. It was a bad job with multiple labor violations, but I needed that job. Most of the time the vacuum would work enough to finish my shift if I hid out of camera range long enough to use my pocket knife to cut hair off the beater brush, or just held the handle a particular way so it didn't pull out. Also learned how to replace plugs really fast without anyone seeing. That skill set ended up being really useful for my next job, but it was still bad of that employer to fire people for reporting faulty equipment. Quite a while back I had a rental car and scratched it. The car was red. I went and found a bottle of nail polish in Larimer that matched it almost exactly and carefully filled in the scratch. I was able to return it without them noticing either then or later. If I had left that scratch as is, I probably would have been stuck paying to have the car completely repainted. Instead it cost me $1 for the nail polish. Apparently rental places don't care. I had a rental I had to touch up. I got the matching paint from a supplier but it still looked really bad. They never said anything. I then swapped it out for another car because I had extended to the maximum rental length. The one they gave me was red and looked like it was touched up with nail polish. I asked the guy what they charge for that. He said, usually if corporate says it can still be rented they just move on. This thing had dings and scratches all over. I made sure to take photos and then told the guy I'm not paying anything for damages, even if I mess this thing up. I was homesick from school one day. Our dog was never allowed upstairs, and so we had a baby gate at the stairs. Well, I tripped and knocked the gate out of the way. Doggo seized his chance and bolted up the stairs and ran straight into my parents' room where he proceeded to have the Zoomers on their bed, which was funny. His crowning moment of glory was to piss all over the pillows, which wasn't. Biggest oh no moment of my life to that point. Proceeded to rip all the sheets and pillows off and throw them all in the wash with about 2 hours to go before mom got home. Get them up to the bedroom and put the room together, but realize it's too clean now. So I grab dirty laundry from their hampers and rub it all over the bed and roll around a bit to rumple and wrinkle everything. Then I vacuumed the carpet to get rid of the dog prints and put on their slippers to put their size footprints back into the pattern left behind from the roller. The perfect crime. To this day they never suspected a thing and slept on dog pee soaked pillows for who knows how long because I was quick enough to get it all out. Thank God for Arxiclian. One day while traveling with my family, my brother and I decided to check out the balcony in our hotel room. There were 2 doors that could open, but one of them had a handle rather than a knob. My brother yanked it so hard that part of it was left in his hand. That same night we bought some super glue and put it on so that even when you pull on it, it wouldn't come off. True, we barely got the glue out of our clothes, but our goal was accomplished. No one noticed the small crack on it. My dad was going out of town when I was in high school, so I decided to invite a few friends over. I told them Friday morning. By Friday night every single person from my high school showed up, including a janitor. There were 2 kegs, tons of beer, you name it, it was out of my control. The next morning I started cleaning. It took all weekend. Someone decided to play darts in the kitchen with my dad's steak knife set and the ceiling. I had fixed a bunch of things around the house, but had no idea how to fix the drywall on the ceiling. I finally just got white toothpaste and filled in the holes. It looked fantastic. I thought I broke something, but managed to barely fix it, ending up with someone else finally breaking it and getting all the blame. Years later I accidentally found out someone else before me had already almost broken the thing, but also gotten away with fixing it. My childhood friend had these hand-made super small Barbie glasses that I think she had inherited from her grandma or something. One time when we and one additional girl were playing with her Barbies, I remember taking up the glasses without paying much attention, just to look down and see that its delicate metal wire were badly bent in an unnatural angle. I didn't want to have my friend be mad at me, so I just bent the wire back up and put the glasses back from where I took it. The other girl ended up taking it, and the wire finally broke. She got all the blame. It was kind of a big deal as the glasses were the only one of its kind and super old. I of course felt super bad, but said nothing. For some reason this incident never really left my mind. But the story doesn't end here. Years later, I was just randomly talking to a third friend. We all were in the same friend group. She told me about this one time when she accidentally broke our friend's pair of Barbie glasses, but managed to fix them and put them back without anyone noticing. And then the next time she was over, the glasses were gone, and how she never forgot about it. I was amazed and told her my story about the same pair of glasses, and we both got a good laugh about it. Still feel kind of bad about it though, but I rest well knowing it wasn't entirely my fault. While goofing around one evening, my roommate and I shot out the inner pane of a double pane window in our student apartment with a pellet gun. Instead of replacing the window, we spent the entire semester pulling out glass fragments from the frame with a pair of pliers. On our last day before moving out, I bought a caulking gun and we caulked over the emptied frame where the pane had been and sealed it. It has been 6 years and nobody has ever noticed that one window is missing a pane of glass. When my siblings and I were teenagers, our mom worked night shift, and we had a lot of, mostly harmless, drug and alcohol free, parties with friends. One goofy night, some of our friends decided to lay across our kitchen table, posing and just being silly. Wealth table, which was an expandable dining table with a leaf split in half and a metal track for the leaf was actually broken. We managed to kind of shove it together in such a way that it stayed kind of supported together, and it looked fine. Until a few nights later, when our mom made some kind of heavy roast for dinner, and exactly as you would imagine, shortly after placing dinner on the table, it split into again with the center falling towards the floor and taking dinner with it. At the time, mom truly believed that the table was, no pun intended, on its last legs and the heavy roast did it in. It wasn't until years later as adults that we came clean and admitted the truth. She fortunately did find it quite funny at that point, but being a single mom who had to wait several months until she could afford a new table, pretty sure she wouldn't have at the time. In school I have a guitar class that I decided to take. I realized shortly after attending my first few classes that not only that I hated this class, but I was really bad at guitar. I was planning to drop the class, and I only had a few more days left of this hellhole. On the second to last day that I had to take this class, I was messing around with friends and somehow I stomped on the guitar. Huge obvious hole in the guitar. Now if I got caught with this, obviously I would get in a lot of trouble, and my parents would have to pay for that. Knowing my parents, that basically means I'm paying for it. So I decided to try to fix it. It was nearing the end of the class, so I had to act fast. I borrowed my friend's tape and somehow tried to tape the wood back into the place it broke. Somehow I got it, and even though it didn't look the greatest, it looked believable enough. The class had just ended, and we had a system where we would just put our guitar back into the case, then give it to the kid who needed it in the next class. Right when I was giving it back to the kid, I swear I had heard it come off and felt the extra piece of wood in my bag. When I felt this, I thought it was over, but I couldn't really stay to find out what happened. Somehow I got through that school day, and when I got to my final day of guitar class the next day, I realized that nobody was giving me my guitar. Then I see my teacher walking up to me, and at this point I thought it was over, but then he says something like, "Oh yeah, Andrew, just so you know, somebody broke your guitar. So today you're just going to be listening to the lesson. Either way, it's your last day." I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what happened, but at this point I didn't really care. Somehow I had gotten away with it. Now I don't know why that one kid, right after I gave him my guitar, didn't go tell the teacher. Maybe he didn't notice, or in fear of getting in trouble. Maybe he did the same thing as me. I don't really know. All I know is that none of that stress would have happened if I wasn't an idiot with my guitar on the floor. I'm an elder millennial, and I love Dragon Ball Z, but kids, before modern internet, Dragon Ball Z hit the same hiccup every run. It came to an episode in the Frieza saga where thereafter, it just stopped and reset the next day back to episode 1. We never saw Goku fight Frieza or Vegeta's plan, and we didn't have the internet to download episodes or even know what happens next. So all you had was heresy at school lunch. There were rumors that Goku would go Super Saiyan and transform and fight with Frieza, but we honestly just didn't know. Then one day it happened. Now, I came home from school and Dragon Ball aired at 4 PM on Toonami. They had advertised that new episodes were coming. I had probably seen the original run through a dozen times, from its 7 AM air, to its Saturday slot, to the final, famed Toonami run. on my childhood Navy. I just always hoped it would continue this time and watched on. But it never did. So when it did, holy crap. You need to understand that I had probably watched the old episodes in order over the span of 5 years, over and over. That was half my life at that point. Goku was caught in a relentless time loop, a Groundhog Day of Cartoon Network's creation, and I was powerless to aid him. Then the day came. Frieza killed Krillin and Goku looked down at the dirt, raging. His hair flashed yellow, then sustained yellow, and 12 or whatever year old me absolutely lost his mind. In that moment, Goku was my spirit animal. We were linked. My den was planet Namek. Lost in a fever dream, I jumped on the couch in a convulsant majesty, thriving in a moment that I'd never recapture. High C Ectocada and Cherry Squeeze It coursing through my veins. His rage was my rage. Arms swinging. Kung fu punches from a skinny white kid that would have brought down a marble monolith. There was no control here. Then it happened. I focused all of that fever into a single falcon punch and my soft little hand went straight through the drywall. The wall was a dark forest green, and I had to think fast or a punishment from my parents was waiting on the horizon. One of my school folders was legitimately the same color of green. I cut out a square the size of the hole, placed it over with the best glue stick craftsmanship ever seen, and laced the sides with gently pressed scotch tape. It was more than perfect. Clearly, I was destined to be a surgeon. Fast forward 14 years. I'm home for the holidays. A medical student at that point, visiting the parents. My father is watching football in that den and storms into the kitchen. Who put a goddamn hole on the wall and put this paper over it? Point, it's not even the same color. I had 2 brothers. I'm the youngest, and somehow everyone had stayed on the same page for a decade about hiding this secret. In fact, it was just an understood law to not mention that hole, and had long since transitioned to a subconscious reality, a law of nature. This was the first it had been spoken of in many years. The first rule of the hole in the drywall was we don't talk about the hole in the drywall. The parchment had faded in countless sun-bleached days. It wasn't even green at this point, more of a cream. I burst into laughter, and my father refused to believe the reality of that hole in the wall. There was simply no way this egregious error had gone unseen for over a decade. Nothing got by him, a fatherly master of his domain. Countless sporting events had been witnessed in this church. Since that day, the paper had faded so slowly, changed so slightly day to day, he had never noticed. We took down the folder parchment, and behold, on the backside in faint ink was a dated syllabus from middle school English class. Mom claims she always knew it was there, but didn't know what it was. And after raising 3 boys, learned these mysteries were best left alone. God only knows what you boys hid in that wall. No thanks. All attempts to negotiate damages were met with a claim of statute of limitations.